And Liz Truss has urged the government to change course on the economy and cut taxes. In her first major speech on the economy since she left office, the former Prime Minister defended her mini-budget, which led to the collapse of the pound and ultimately the rapid end to her time at number 10.
It's certainly true that I didn't just try to fatten the pig on market day. I tried to rear the pig, fatten the pig and slaughter the pig on market day. I confess to that. But the reason we were in a rush is because voters had voted for change. In order to grow, we need to change. And that starts with acknowledging that we have a problem. It means abandoning the stale economic consensus.
Well, joining me now is our economics editor, Ed Conway. Ed, why should anyone really care what Liz Truss thinks about the economy?
Well, it's a very good question. I mean, she was the Prime Minister, I suppose, is the straightforward answer, and took us down, briefly at least, down a road which was quite potentially a profound change for the UK. I think what's striking for me, you know, I wasn't quite sure what to expect from this speech, and a lot of people like you will be kind of asking that question about why we should be still listening to her. The thing I hadn't kind of expected is actually when you listen to that bit that we just played, that was something of acknowledgement that she got things wrong. And in her case, she's saying, you know, this thing about kind of trying to, fatten the pig and slaughter it and sell it as well. She's kind of casting that as a bit of the problem. To my mind, and, you know, we reported this on this kind of very much at the time, to my mind, you know, that was the big problem. I mean, there's a big debate that we can carry on having about what are the optimal rates for tax, about how much the national debt should be, about how much public spending could be, how you get growth going. All of these things are important debates that we need to continue having in the UK. But the issue was, ultimately, that the UK government, with Liz Truss and Kwasi Kwarteng, lost credibility. They lost the credibility of markets, and as a result of that, you saw all of those things that we reported on back then. You saw gilt yields going through the roof at the same time as the pound getting to the lowest level that we've seen against the dollar in history. It's the combination of those two things is really what matters. You had big question marks about whether the UK was going to be able to sell its debt in future. You have big question marks, essentially, that you only tend to hear about countries when they are facing these kinds of credibility crises, as we saw in Greece, as we've seen in many emerging economies around the world. And that was happening about the UK. And it was happening because, in large part, of that rush, because it was quite, you know, to take another phrase from that Liz Truss didn't use, but she did talk about pigs, it was quite ham-fisted. The way that it was implemented was ultimately ham-fisted, and as a result of that, a lot of people within markets got very scared, and then you had the implications that we all saw. You saw what happened with LDIs, with the pension market. That wasn't Liz Truss's fault, but by pushing markets into that place, into that insecurity, that precipitated other issues. Bombs and mines that were buried went off. And that ultimately is the big story. The UK briefly lost credibility. And now we can see with a new Prime Minister, Bank of England's administration still the same. Obviously, gilt yields are a lot higher now because interest rates are higher, but the pound is much stronger. And so there isn't that credibility question over the UK anymore. What I think, though, you know, Liz Truss and her colleagues should take some reassurance from is that, you know, I think those debates haven't gone away. You know, I think that people still need to be talking about how to get growth going. They need to be talking about what the optimal tax policy is. All of those things that she talked about are still legitimate questions. That stuff shouldn't be dismissed, as some people think. However, the market's verdict was, we don't really like the cut of your jib, and that's why we are selling off UK assets, and we all know what happened next.